Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here. This is the first Coordinated Entry Committee meeting of 2025. Is everyone able to see my screen? Am I still sharing it? Okay, great. And we have the Coordinated Entry Committee agenda up. Wonderful. Um, Alex, would you be able to help us out with the welcome and roll call?
Yes. Please say here if you're here. Devin Koenig Cease. Mila Fay.
Here.
Eddie Matlock Mahone.
Present.
Martha Linder.
Here.
Portia Anderson. Patricia Sam. Elliot Hart.
Here.
Antoinette Lambert. Kelsey Peckmeyer.
Present.
Jaja Floyd.
Here.
Kenyatta Carol Hillman. Sherry Tillman.
Here.
Our quorum is met with 7 members present.
And
Sorry, I have my
just as you were doing that roll call, Alex, I saw that Devin came in, so
Okay.
we can add Devin to that list too. Welcome, Devin. Thanks for being
All right.
here.
Good
8
morning,
members
present. Yep.
present. Thanks, Devin. 8 members present, 4 absent. Quorum is met.
I think
Wonderful.
too, I just wanted to mention, I think the hold that I had and the meeting invite were 10:30 to noon. So I don't know if other people might be joining at 10:30.
Okay, yeah, thanks. That's good to know. I put in my email to everyone, I mentioned I think at least once that we were going to be doing 10 to noon, and that was what was on the website as well. So sorry
Okay.
about that, Devin. But thanks for noting that. Alrighty. Alex, would you please read our theory of change?
Mm-hmm. Okay. If our theory of change is if we create a homelessness response system that centers people who have lived experience of homelessness, and will be able to meet the needs and eliminate inequalities in order to end homelessness for all.
Thank you. And Jaja, I think I'll call upon you to help us with our land acknowledgement. Are you able to do that for us today?
Yes, let me see.
I just went ahead and put it in the chat for you.
Oh, you did?
Mhm.
You're so wonderful. Thank you. The King County Continuum of Care Board acknowledges that we work on the unceded traditional lands of the Coast Salish people, especially the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people. The original stewards of the land, past and present. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. This acknowledgement only becomes meaningful when combined with accountable relationships and informed action. It is the first step in honoring the land that we today sit on and their peoples. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaja. All right. Great. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm very happy and excited that we have quorum today and that we're able to be here together to do some business, to get down to work. The first thing that I had for us on our agenda today is to kind of review and look over our charter, bylaws, and the member responsibilities. I know that this is something, when I was preparing for today's meeting, I looked over some past agendas, both set by Alex Ibrahimi, who convened this committee last year, and Beth Lazar, who kind of co-chaired and led this group when there was no coordinated entry manager, and saw that there was at least one occasion where the charter and bylaws were reviewed by this group. The reason why I wanted to do it again today is that, as we all know, particularly in Q4 of 2024, there were several meetings where we kind of had a hard time meeting quorum. And also even still today, quorum has been met, but with 4 absent members too. So I think I just wanted, to review the charter, the bylaws, review these membership responsibilities, and just make sure that this is still all something that we agree upon, that everyone's feeling good about, and it's still something that everyone's able to commit to. In doing so, there are a couple pieces that I've highlighted that I think we'll need to kind of take a look at, and amend, make some changes going forward about kind of how this committee is, both staffed and chaired. And we'll get into that here in a couple minutes as we kind of go over the charter. So first of all, with the charter, the first thing with it is just the role of the committee. And this opens up with starting about why HUD and the continuum of care want a coordinated access or a coordinated entry system to exist in the first place. And that's followed up by their outlining that a coordinated entry committee should exist to oversee policies and procedures related to coordinated entry in King County. The CEC will be responsible for identifying and approving policies and procedures that guide the coordinated entry system in King County. The King County Regional Homelessness Authority staff will be responsible for the implementation of these policies and procedures. The policies and procedures will cover the HUD core elements of access, assessment, prioritization, and referral. In addition, the King County COC has asked the coordinated entry system to be responsible for placements in the housing system. So the CEC will be responsible for overseeing policies and procedures that impact housing placements in our local coordinated entry system. Then the charter goes on to talk about membership. Pursuant to the charter, members of the CEC should include regional homeless authorities, coordinated entry staff, providers, and customers with expertise in this area. So that is all of you. The maximum number of CEC members is currently set at 13, but that number can be adjusted and approved by the COC board. Currently, this group has 12 members. So, we technically, through this current charter, have room for one more, but we have 12 right now. The recommended term length for the CEC members is 2 years. However, exceptions can be made by the CEC members and COC board to ensure that there's adequate expertise and representation on the committee to accomplish the needed work. The Coordinated Entry Committee will have a leadership structure consisting of one chairperson who is a member of the COC board. The individual occupying the chair position will be responsible for agenda co-creation, facilitating the CEC meetings, and reporting back progress and decisions to the COC board. All of these activities will be in partnership and supported by KCRHA staff. So really, that was kind of one of the important things that I wanted to highlight and open up for conversation and discussion with this group today. The obvious thing here being that is not kind of currently how this committee is being structured and led. I am not a member of the COC board. I'm a KCRHA staff person. And since, stepping into this role, have been leading and managing this space. But one thing that I wanted to talk with you all about today is, how do we, what is the roadmap that we want to take to have this committee be chaired by the appropriate type of person or participant from the COC board. So kind of before we continue going through the charter, I wanted to open that up for a little bit of conversation. As I'm opening it up, I'm kind of looking to you, Jaja and Kelsey, as our kind of COC implants, and participants here, kind of what your thoughts and reflections are to kind of set the course for us in this conversation. Any thoughts?
As far as membership or
As far as having a chairperson, for this committee,
oh
that's someone from the COC board. Right now, technically, Jaja, you're the so and this gets into another piece that I wanted to cover when we talk about membership in general. But as in my experience so far, 4 months into this role, with about, I think we've had two or three like fully like quorumed meetings where we've been able to do business. I also believe that it's either yourself and maybe Patricia who have been kind of like actually repeatedly like present here for this meeting. I think the other members of this committee who are members of the COC board are folks who, and again we'll talk about this in a few minutes, but folks who I've actually sent some messages being kind of like, hey, you've had three or more absences in 2024. Please let us know if you're interested in continuing being a part of this committee, or we're gonna vacate that seat and move to refill it. But Kelsey, I see your hands up too, so.
Um, so I'm coming from the standpoint of um, COC governance and operation, and in order to have, alignment with both how our COC board functions, how our system performance committee functions, I think it is prudent that we have established chairs and co-chairs in a similar fashion, especially who are representatives of our COC board. That's how that's how the system performance committee is also set up and ran. And that's also fairly similar to the Youth Action Board, which is another one of our like continuum bodies. They also have co-chairs, and one of those co-chairs is a COC board member. So I think in order to just have continuity across function, um, and not just in the like, we need to all be the same, but it creates much better clarity, transparency, and relationship between our committees and boards. So those are my 2 cents.
Thanks, Kelsey. Yeah, and then do either you or Jaja kind of have any idea or maybe some some thoughts or comments on a roadmap for success for, you know, and I'm happy to closely partner and as kind of acting, I guess, like KCRHA staff member, but also CEC chairperson, partner closely, but kind of how we should move toward, because Jaja, I don't want to voluntel, oh, Jaja, you are our COC board member here with this group. It should be you who is our committee chairperson. If you would like to be, then certainly open to that conversation as well. But uh if we are looking for some participation from other members of the COC board, you know, how does this group think that we should look to getting some more participation from the COC board and potentially, recruiting some leadership from them as well?
uh yeah, Tom, I think to follow this process that in this particular meeting, I would say that we would table the chair position and reach out to other COC board members who are not actively here. And then also to uh, next month revisit this. And I would not mind being the chair, but I've been chair in so many venues that I would love for someone to have an opportunity who has not been in that position to facilitate in that aspect. So, but yes, I would be happy, but I would prefer that we open it for fairness, you know what I mean? And that everyone has a chance to step into a leadership role, you know? And also to encourage our COC board members who signed up to be on coordinated entry to fulfill that obligation or duty, or, you know, and
Right.
also to just check in, you know, people's life
Mm-hmm.
change and life
Mm-hmm.
happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what they signed up for then may not be so now. And then we can look at also filling seats or whatever.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree, Jaja. Um, Eddie.
So, what, um, besides Zaza and Kelsey, who else that are currently members, whether they're active or not, who else do we have on the committee that is on the COC board?
Well, Patricia Sams, Kenyatta, um, and well, I don't, and Antoinette,
I believe
I
it's
think.
Kenyatta and
us-
Antoinette are no longer on the COC board,
Oh, okay.
and neither is Sherry. So at the moment,
yeah.
it is you and Patricia, and Kelsey helps run it, but she is
Not a board
not
member.
a board
Not-
Not a
member.
board member.
Kelsey.
That's an emphatic no from Kelsey.
Yes,
I support it. I am there to help support. I am not a voting member of the board.
indeed.
So we have
Patricia.
three
Oh,
people
sorry.
who are, sorry, so we have
Yeah.
three people who are currently on the board that are part of the committee and active.
Who is it besides myself and Patricia?
I think that
Just two.
I
Oh,
think
it's
that's
just
it.
two. Oh,
Yeah,
okay, sorry.
just Jaja and Patricia. And Patricia has her hand up.
Hi, y'all. I just wanted to let you know that I did decide I'm on, but I'm on medical leave. So if I have
Hmm.
anything, I will put it in the chat. Yeah, if you don't mind, I did get on, but I'm not at my best right now.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, Patricia. You know, and if that is the case too, you know, we really appreciate your deep commitment and being here. And if you are not feeling well and you're not feeling 100% at your best, please know that it is a-okay for you to, you know, leave us and we can update you on what we work on here today and any updates that we have. But if you're not feeling 100%, then please don't feel any undue pressure to stay on. Luckily, we were able to meet quorum today, so we
Uh-huh.
have a staffed committee. But also want to just, you know, acknowledge and see your commitment. So thank you.
Thank you all so much. And that was, I was wondering if we were at quorum, so I wanted
Yep.
to get on. But if you don't mind, I may get off so that I
Well,
can follow
Patricia,
my
before you
doctor.
leave,
Yeah.
we are
Yeah.
doing the membership, and one chairperson has to be a member of the COC. And the only people who are on the COC on the board here, on the committee, is you or I. And I want to ask you if you would be interested in being a chairperson for the coordinated entry. Because it'd be you or I, and you know, I've filled chair positions in the COC board, but I wanted to open it up to you if that's something you'd like to do.
Did you
You
say
know,
a co-chair? It will be a new experience, and I am here and available to help in whatever capacity I have. I can with coaching and training. Yes.
oh, thank you. There you go.
So you all keep me informed. I'm gonna stay on. I'm just gonna be off camera and I'm gonna be listening and I can add in the chat, okay?
Thank you,
Wonderful.
Patricia. And if you don't feel well, please take care of yourself.
Thank you all so much.
I just wanted to get that on record. And Tom, being as though that it's just, and thank you, Eddie, for bringing that up, who are the people of the COC board who could be a chairperson? And it just looks like it's between me and Dr. Sams, and then being as though that she would not mind being the chairperson with coaching, and I would help her in that if that's what, or y'all as staff could help her in that. I would say that we would have a chairperson as Patricia Sams.
Yeah, thanks for kind of helping navigate that conversation, right here, right now, Jaja. I think that's an excellent option. I think it's one that we should look at. And I also think too, as we consider a greater conversation about membership, I'm going to kind of take us there as we continue to go through. Also, is everyone still able to see my screen here? Zoom isn't giving me green squares around
Yes.
like which one,
And we can see it.
Can you
and
make
we're
it a little
just
bit bigger though?
sure, and we're just getting this one window. Is that true? Just
Yeah.
this like, okay, great.
All we
Z-
see is the yeah.
okay, cool. Zoom isn't kind of helping me out as they do sometimes with that like, green box around it to be like, this is the one that you're sharing. So I appreciate that feedback. I think that as we talk about membership and membership requirements, uh I would be interested in talking with, you and Patricia and Kelsey with the COC board about maybe also getting a little bit more participation from them in this committee, and then we can revisit and kind of bring a maybe hopefully a more robust process for decision making when it comes to deciding on a co-chair because I think it will be I would like for it we got a lot of work to do this year. And I just want to make sure that as we're making that decision, that there's some good thought and intention. And Patricia, Dr. Sam, I appreciate your willingness to step in, and it could be that we go in that direction, but I also want to make sure that we kind of have a robust process to move forward. So. All right, so thank you. So what I'm going to keep as notes on the topic of chairperson for right now is that we are looking at the COC board's participation in addition to just kind of like Jaja's and Patricia's commitment to the committee and Kelsey and Jaja and Patricia. Maybe that's something that we take to the board here in the next month or two as to kind of say, let's look at really finding a chairperson for the coordinated entry committee. Moving on to membership. Um, oh, well, that's the paragraph that we already talked about. So let's talk about the structure and the frequency. Here in the charter, it says that the CEC meetings are monthly for 90 minutes. I kind of, in the last couple of months, since we haven't been able to have consistent, fully staffed meetings, and there's a lot that I know that you all and we all want to work on, I've been opting for this 2 hour time window between 10 and noon, just because there's lots of things that we want to cover. And also too, I think just as a way for us to kind of like ground ourselves and spend some time together as we continue to kind of like form and norm this group. But technically in the charter, it says that the meetings are 90 minutes. We post the agendas online, in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. And we use and have adopted the Robert Rules of Order for a decision-making process. Really what I wanted to kind of sink more deeply into are these expectations and responsibilities for general coordinated entry committee members. All members of the CEC are expected to meet the following expectations and take on the needed responsibilities to fulfill the work of the committee. So those expectations are regular attendance to committee meetings, pre-reading of the distributed agendas and materials, active engagement in all committee meetings, and participating in the needed votes to move the work of the CEC forward, or providing a clear rationale for abstention. The responsibilities are working with the CEC members and KCRHA staff to come to a solution on challenges and barriers that the King County Coordinated Entry System is experiencing, working with the KCRHA staff and other subject matter experts to become familiar with the details necessary to operate in the coordinated entry system of King County, and engagement in King County community members and partners, engagement with, community members and partners that are critical to the operation of our coordinated entry system in order to move our work forward. And finally, bringing forward to the chair and or KCRHA staff any barriers that are limiting engagement or participation. So if things are coming up in that make it difficult for you to participate or engage fully, communicating with whomever our co-chairperson is going to be, or myself, on how to kind of mitigate and work through some of those challenges. Here are some of the responsibilities of the chair. We can go over those in more depth when that chairperson is decided. But yeah, I also just wanted to highlight, it's not specifically written out in here, but the next kind of topic that I wanted to talk about with membership expectations and responsibilities, it says here in the expectations for regular attendance, it is in our Seattle King County COC Charter for the COC board or any of our committees. So the committees that we have are, as Kelsey noted, the System Performance Committee, our Coordinated Entry Committee, and there is also the Youth Action Board. And the charter provides guidance that says any board or committee members that miss 3 meetings in a year could have their seats, vacated or forfeited. And as I reached out to all of you at the end of December and last week to kind of confirm and make sure that we would have quorum be able to be met to do this business today, to actually even kind of be able to have this conversation today about membership and attendance. There are 3 members who missed more than 3 meetings last year. I have already taken the liberty of reaching out to them and providing them with a note that says to please respond to me by February 13th. Our next meeting is February 27th. And so there's 3 members that I've reached out to who missed more than 3 meetings last year. And I have asked them to please confirm to me by February 13th whether they would like to continue serving in their role as a committee member. And so that will give us time then to, if we don't hear back from them by the charter and the bylaws of the charter, to say that they will forfeit or their seats can be vacated. And in that way, our membership number will change. And then hopefully, for that February meeting, quorum is meant to be half of the number of members on the committee plus 1. And so that will also change the calculus of us being able to meet quorum next month. So hopefully that will be a little bit easier for this group to obtain, and we can move forward and do business. And one of the things that I'd like to do then is continue this chairperson conversation, like Jaja suggested, to kind of table that, and hopefully we'll have some updates and are able to have a more robust conversation on that next month. And then also talk about the process for recruiting and staffing the committee to get back to the number of members that we need for a real, full and robust committee. Jaja, I see your hand is up.
Yes, Tom, I was wondering about absences. Does that include the 3 absences? Does that include excused absences? I mean, like once you contacted, things came up for people.
Yeah, great question. And the answer is no. So they were all unexcused absences.
Yeah, but I was just saying that as far as our
Oh,
bylaws go,
no,
right?
excused absence. Sorry, I misunderstood your question.
Okay.
Thank you. Excused absences don't count. So when we had it on record that people had reached out to Alex or myself, or in the past like Beth or Alex Ibrahimi, to say that I'm on PTO this month, or things of that nature, those were not counted against folks. The absences that Alex Piffner and I were counting were unexcused absences.
So for the record and clarity,
Yep.
3 unexcused absence in a year can or will vacate a seat.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. No, thank you. Alrighty. Any other questions or comments about any of the expectations, responsibilities, and then kind of how that's tying into a vision of how we're going forward in the next couple of months here. This quarter one, I should say, to make sure that we're kind of staffing this committee appropriately to be able to move forward with the work that we want to do, and also being able to have the meetings in order to do that business together. Does that sound good to everybody, or any other questions, comments, or thoughts on that? Great. Hearing none, I'll take us back to the agenda. And you know what? We are, even with kind of getting having a few minutes of kerfuffle to get off the ground, we are ahead of schedule here. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. The next thing that I want to take us into is this reviewing the vision setting activity that I asked all of you as committee members to commit a little bit of time to before the meeting today. And then hopefully taking that into making some key goals for this group for the year, and then moving forward to use those goals to create a work plan. You know, as we just reviewed in the charter, it says that this group is the group that's going to kind of oversee and direct policy for the coordinated entry system. So my hope with you all is to kind of get some goals down, a work plan of the type of policy work that would like to do for this year. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to open up our vision setting activity. Okay, we are back. Is everyone able to see this one too? Great.
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. This time is really for the whole group. Thanks all for, you know, kind of hanging tight and bearing with us so patiently as we kind of made our way through that bylaws and charter conversation. But now I'm really hoping that this is a chance that people will have an opportunity to come off mute and share. And so I don't know if we want to do kind of like hand raising and then I'll call on folks. But really, this is your time to share. And let's start with the vision. You know, when you all were reflecting on what your vision is for a coordinated entry system in Seattle and King County, what were the ideas that you had? Go ahead and feel free to raise your hands. I'm using the thing, and we'll call on you and start to go through this.
I'll go ahead and update you on the list for today. I've got you marked down that you're
Jaja.
Yeah, I would hope that we have clarity on the coordinated entry system overall as a whole. When people enter people into the coordinated entry system, and that once they're entered, what's the next step? You know, I mean, in the past, it seems like that's where everything sits. Just like the providers enroll them or get them enrolled, and then um and then I know there's this thing about, well, I'm not quite clear on it, so I'm learning also, but that there's a pool that they can pull from to put people in, but it doesn't seem like there's much movement. So I just want to get clarity around that, and for that to be moved, you know, and
Sure.
understanding so that we have a tool that we're using that is working.
Thank you, Jaja. Sherry, I saw your hand go up next.
3 months. 4 months.
Yes. So
Here we've got 4 months.
my I would say my
Yes, ma'am.
That's it right
vision
here.
for the
And you're
for the,
currently at this
our
is your
the,
weather
my
hotel,
expectation,
right?
I guess, was to
Yes, ma'am.
to make sure that families were like, the same thing, kind of the clarification, as well as you know, not just placed in the system and then there's no updates on kind of what's going on. You're just all you know, you're on the list, but nobody's really updating it and kind of letting you know what's going on. And then also with
any other place you can
the
go.
vulnerability,
So
like sometimes people are going through like all the medical conditions, or not all, but there's a lot of medical conditions, there's disabilities, and they're still not even being kind of elevated to the top. And so that was one of my concerns, is like how much more vulnerable do you have to be
from what I know,
to be I would say
there will not be any
um,
extension. So
higher on the list, to
you
feel
know,
like you're
make
still
sure
waiting
you
a long
check
time.
the desk and you'll need to check out on time so you won't be charged.
Thank you, Sherry.
Okay.
Okay, take good care, but
Martha, I saw your hand up next.
Hi. Yeah, I was thinking about kind of previous discussions we've had this last year and just kind of the goal of increasing efficiency and connecting our most vulnerable unhoused community members to permanent supportive housing. And addressing the barriers for that.
Thank you, Martha. And just to be clear, these are really wonderful things that are coming up, and I don't mean to not engage them. But what I'm trying to do right now is just get this all down on a list. So thank you. Kelsey, I saw your hand go up next.
I think something important in the vision is what understanding the purpose of coordinated entry, that this is not just about getting access to housing, but is access for all people experiencing homelessness to access any resource available to them. And how are we creating a coordinated access where we understand in a more dynamic way the needs of our community of folks who are experiencing homelessness, no matter what that need is. And having a kind of robust understanding of those system needs will help us develop a robust understanding of where our investments need to go. And that is one of the large purposes of our coordinated entry system, is to not just know who needs what, but what are we missing to meet those needs, to ensure that we have the data and the information to demonstrate where we need funds to be and maintain, so that we understand the kind of shifting landscape of folks within our community. It goes beyond just access into a housing resource or a housing type. It goes to diversion, it goes to prevention, it goes to food resources, it goes to ongoing case management supports, that there are holistic needs that we want to ensure we understand in order to provide what each person as a individual or a household unit needs to best resolve their current experience and have their needs met as best as possible.
Thank you, Kelsey. Noah.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. I think, I mean, I for years, my vision I've been hammering on is ensuring we're identifying the most vulnerable people better than we historically have. I guess, I mean, my vision, it's a weird way to frame a vision, but we've really struggled with that in a way that's really confounding to me and really frustrating. And I want to fix that. but I think I would maybe enhance that vision a bit and thinking about, I would like a coordinated entry system that really thinks about, that to me is a little bit Martha and others have said about like aligning what resources we have with the people we're serving, thinking about where different programs are literally situated, what type of services they offer, and then thinking about what sorts of people experiencing homelessness would benefit the most from them, and really trying to align all of that stuff. Whereas I feel like right now we have people and then there are a random bunch of programs, and we try to get them to what we can in a way that just doesn't feel like we're thinking from beginning point to end point as strategically as we could. And I think we could just find all sorts of efficiencies that would benefit everybody, particularly people experiencing homelessness, better. And if we just thought about intentional throughput and where people are coming from and where we can help direct them.
Thank you, Noah. Devin.
Thanks, Tom. And thanks, everyone. Yeah, I really just, I think at this point, I want to echo too the importance of ensuring the system is focusing on the people with the most barriers to housing, and that there's a focus on service matches and improving the quality of service matches. I think also helping people navigate the like requirements and documentation needed to access programs is another area of vision. And then I also see, and maybe this is, I guess this does fit into vision, but being able to understand how the system is working and have access to data on how different demographics are served, and where there are like disproportionalities or gaps in service, is something that I think is really important in guiding this work. And yeah, just having that high level view so that we can then like see where does the system need to change to better serve the community. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Devin. Elliot.
Hello. I think all the things. And in addition, I think something that I think is valuable is using data to inform education and training. Figuring out, what are we tracking, what are we watching, what are we seeing, what are the patterns? Is there a particular service agency that consistently misses a mark on something? Is there a landlord that's consistently denying for a specific reason? Anything that we can do to kind of look at to figure out, how can we increase efficiency and equity within the data?
Thank you. Eddie.
Besides echoing everything that everybody else said, especially Noah and Elliot, really trying to see what we can do to streamline while, really lowering that time as much as possible, making sure that the system is not adding to the length of time between referral and entry. And so just really making sure that whether that is also with education out to providers around what does it mean to be document ready for when they make a referral, what type of income verifications are accepted, things like that. Moving from the case manager role in a previous life to now in a compliance role, and on that side, like I'm able to see both of those sides, and I can see that knowledge was something that I just kind of learned as a case manager through trial and error, and which led to delayed times for people getting inside and things like that. And it's one of my biggest frustrations now on, for lack of a better term, the landlord side.
Right.
And where it's like, okay, you made this referral, why are you not ready?
Thanks, Eddie. Kelsey.
Uh, Both Devin and Eddie sparked a thought as well around we have this HMIS system that can also be like a centralized documentation hub. Um, so I think developing a system that also has coordinated intake into programs, where it is for a PSH building, all the same documentation for intake. For rapid rehousing, all the same documentation can be attached to a profile. And how are we better sharing among similar types of housing to ensure that those barriers and those documentation challenges are met as quickly as possible, and that there is consistency and continuity across our system around what is expected and what is needed to enter housing, and that there is a way for us to centralize those things as well, so that there are um, not there is no one program that has less or more needed documentation to get housed, to in order to not be a system that creates um, unnecessary barriers.
Yeah. Thank you, Kelsey. All right. Thanks, everyone. And so these are great, uh, you know, really rich thoughts to bring toward a vision for the coordinated entry system. What are some of the values that we bring to this work? Eddie.
Yeah, I'll kick this one off. I think some of the greatest values that we bring is the breadth of experience that this entire community has. Um, People who have lived experience, people who have lived experience, but are also now in a provider role, people who are in a senior leadership role, compliance role, landlord role. Like, so we cover, we even have the healthcare side. Like, so we have a vast field of knowledge that is here, which is extremely important for us to be able to tap into. And we all have great teams behind us that we can also tap into to get um, more information or more experience that can really help kind of reach some of those visions that we just kind of came up with. I don't think any of those visions that we just talked about are unobtainable.
I agree. Thank you. Martha.
A focus on equity, efficiency, collaboration, and echoing everything Eddie just said.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share some values they think of when we bring to this work? Kelsey?
Um, Again, just lifting up equity and anti-racism as being huge values that we have within our system and want to uphold within our system. Um, and continuing on that we are anchoring decisions, policies, and choices based upon folks with lived experience, and that we are ensuring that our table is big enough, and that we have seats that are considering those the voices of those who are navigating this system, um, as a large value in how this work is um, embarked upon.
Thank you. Devin.
Thanks, Tom. Just in addition to everything that's already been said, I think transparency is just a really important value, and especially I mean across the entire system, but especially for the people going through the coordinated entry system to understand what that experience should look like and kind of what their rights are and what they can expect.
Thanks, Evan. Anyone else? Last call. Sherry, Jaja. Any values that come to mind for this work? Elliot, Jaja.
Yeah, no, I thought Eddie said a lot, right? I'm right there with him, right? And then everyone else, and then Martha came in with the equity and efficiency and the anti-racism, the lived experience. You know, so I don't see anything else that I could add. I love the transparency, right? And for some reason, I want to say the gatekeeping thing, right? That we don't do that. So that, and the power dynamics that, so I don't know what that would be like equity across the board. So that would still fall under equity. So I was just trying to suss that out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, last call. I know maybe some of y'all are thinking like, oh, something's already been said, but even if that's the case, even if you're just coming on to say echoing,
Well,
but
it's a challenging time because so many people are in desperate.
Oh yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I agree. Like I agree with it, what everybody has said. Like I think
Got it, thank you.
again, just being able to have the equity part, the transparency, the clarification, the
And are you Hispanic in background?
collaboration, just everything that's been said. I just think
South American.
I have nothing to add. I just always I always think about myself, like when I was on it years ago with my kids, and how the experience, it just took so long. I didn't even, it just seemed like I never got a call. Yeah, it was a lot of kind of hardship around that because I thought that this was gonna at the time be like a network that would probably help me, but I end up getting housed before I
Okay, but you
even
identify as Hispanic, I'm just.
kind of got a call back or got help. I didn't have a number to call. I didn't have nobody to call through that. So yeah, I agree with everything.
And have you served in the
yeah,
military?
thank you. All righty. What do we think about when we assess our current state? Some of the stuff there might be a little bit that's repeated. I think some of you have offered a reflection or two of where we're at right now. But when we kind of zero in and think about where we are at today, what are some of the things that come to mind for folks? Jaja.
That the process is stagnant. I mean, and there's not enough data to see what's taking place. You know, how can we best provide help to what folks' needs are if we don't know, if we don't have anything else to fall back on? I mean, I'd like to see something where we could see the whole picture. You know what I mean? And I think data plays a great role in that, as well as, lived experience and just transparency across the network.
Thank you. Eddie.
I definitely want to echo, I think that work on transparency still needs to happen. And there's, I think, a lot of things that uh, people are just not aware of how the whole system works. And really how all the different case conferences interact with each other, and how different things get prioritized, where in a policy and procedures manual, it might be laid out, but it definitely gives an appearance of not being transparent on something. If a certain activity get priority access to some referrals or resources or something like that. And just not really being able to, or not sharing with the community that that's happening, and like saying why that stuff is happening. It definitely, I've seen an opinion come that, oh, they're favoring certain projects or certain things that are happening to make a better public image type of a thing. Whether that's true or not, I'm not saying that, but I think that would just help around us needing to, or the transparency part definitely needing to happen. I also want to echo what Zaza said. I feel the system is stagnant, and I think that too much is trying to happen all at the same time, when we should probably focus on a few of the more important goals that are currently in process, to try to really solidify those, and then we can expand off of that, if that makes sense. So
Thank you, Eddie. Martha.
Just echoing the same in terms of increased need for transparency, and everything that Eddie and Zaza just said about that. But also just want to put voice to our lack of resources for affordable and subsidized housing in King County, and the need for more. And that definitely plays into a lot of our challenges.
Thank you. Devin.
I don't have anything to add. Just want to echo all of what's been said, and especially the lack of resources, and just the limited pool of resources that we're working with, having to set up a system to prioritize people, isn't ideal.
Kelsey.
Again, the economic point that we are in, and the extreme challenge of affordability, I think, is a huge piece that we have to recognize and anchor ourselves in with this work of goals and accomplishments. I think something else around our current state is the lack of support and navigation that we have available for certain populations, that it's very hard to access our coordinated entry system, and that it is currently dependent upon connection to a service provider. And that I think also creates a lot of accessibility obstacles for people, to be able to independently navigate their needs, knowing that we do have a large population of folks who they need to be able to have the mechanisms and abilities to access things. And we have a system writ large that is gate kept. It is not accessible to people who don't want to have to engage with a service provider. I don't need to engage with a service provider. They need a service, but they don't need to, their level of support doesn't necessarily merit them having that ongoing relationship. They need, yeah, I'll stop.
Thank you. Noah.
Yeah, and I will preface by speaking up where I feel I have expertise, which is the single adult space. So maybe this is not as applicable in other spaces, but I still feel like the current state is we're just too blunt of a system. I think we're not looking at the level of detail we need to related to the people we're trying to serve. I mean, I think of that around prioritization for sure. The level of need individuals have and what kind of services they need is far more nuanced than the way we're currently looking to gather that information. And I worry some of the efficiencies that offers us at the front, we pay for in the back end in terms of how we manage the system and how we support people. So I'd love to see some way of, well, I know this is the current state, but I'd love to see some way of improving upon that. And then I also think this kind of goes back to my throughput thing earlier. I think the current system doesn't think about what resources we actually have to offer people and refer people to. We have this ongoing crisis of homelessness. And so we're just like, what housing do we have available? Let's find people and get them there, as opposed to like, what housing do we have? How is it designed? Who is it developed for in mind? And how do we ensure those folks are the ones getting there so we're actually being efficient in our system? We don't really think about what resources we're managing. We seem to think solely about finding people and moving them through, which is half the battle, but it's not, we're missing the other half. And I think we really need to do more of that planning and plotting.
Thank you. Elliot.
I don't really have anything to add except to kind of double on what Noah just mentioned. The idea of like, how do we really look at the resources that we have and specific unique programs that are within the community, and how do we make sure that there's good stewardship of those to ensure that they can keep existing. I think, Tom, you and I have had conversations recently about the Williams Apartments, which is our recovery building, where we typically see upwards of 10 referrals before we get an accurate match, where there is a housing crisis and it's brutal and people need roofs, but we need to think strategically about the roofs that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, on that piece, I feel like the current state where many people shared the dearth of resource, which, yeah, I mean, for sure, it's tragic we have to say that we have a housing shortage, but I mean, we have a drastic housing shortage, particularly for the more income disadvantaged and more disadvantaged populations and the people with more profound disabilities, and more there are few opportunities for those folks. And so like there's a connection between the comment I was making and Elliot was making with the fact that we don't have enough housing. If we have such a shortage of it, and what we are designing, we really need to maximize the effectiveness of the resources we have. And to be clear, I'm advocating for higher needs people getting connected to programs designed for higher needs people, not the opposite, not like not serving people with really high needs. It's just and we don't do that very well as a system. We're getting better. I think, and I want to give the KCRJ credit, you guys. I think you've moved in the right direction on this, but we're not nearly where we need to be. And that's not on you, that's on our system. But we gotta be efficient and maximize resources we have, not just recognize that there's a housing crisis and just, not look at the stock we have with more nuanced lens.
Thank you. Seeing lots of nods there on that point too. Anything else? I also just want to say, even if you all are coming on to say like echoing whatever anyone has said before, because I'm keeping notes on this too. And that is also the helpful kind of data to be kind of like, here's a value or a vision that someone has enumerated, and 3 people backed it up, so anyone else who hasn't had a chance to share yet on like assessment of the current state, even if you just chime in to say I agree with what everyone said before.
There were a couple messages in the chat too.
Oh, thank you. Okay, lack of variety. Eddie chimes in saying lack
I
of
was
variety.
just adding, like, besides the lack of resources, it's a lack of the variety of resources.
Mm-hmm.
So right now we've got basically PSH and rapid rehousing in our
Right.
system. Two polar opposites of the spectrum. And also
Kelsey,
just the lack of them being available generally in the community.
Yeah.
I know we don't have control over that, but
Yeah. And Eddie, I think on that, kind of adding that our current state is really we have a referral process. We have a coordinated referral process, not a coordinated system. Um,
thank you. Okay. We have visions, we have values, we have an assessment of our current state. What are some of the goals? And again, this is, I know it can feel a little bit redundant, but I do think that it is really good for us to be getting this granular and thinking about, like, we have our visions, we have the assessment of the current state. What are really our goals? And here maybe is where we can narrow it down to one or like up to like 5 or 10 words, like in summarizing. And so from this place, what are our goals for 2025? Jaja.
Yeah, I think one of our goals should be full transparency.
What does that
And
mean? What does that mean to you, Jaja?
full transparency across so that everyone knows what everything is. It's not like hidden agendas, like so that someone working with a client or working with I don't like to call them clients. I like anyway, working with people in their situation um can have some kind of backup, like that even the person that's being worked with and the person helping them navigate can have more of a understanding that we're both seeking the same thing, right? And we're both going to get there because guess what? There's only one way for everybody.
Mm.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when I say one way for everybody, I meant everyone has a different need, but how we get there is equitable.
Mm. Thank you. Noah.
Yeah, I think the transparency piece, yeah, for sure. I think that's clear. We try to find some ways to improve that. So I agree there. I'd love to pilot some stuff. This is such a huge system across so many different programs. This idea of changing and make improvements has always felt daunting or overly incremental. And that makes sense if we're thinking about the whole thing. Can we look at ways of trying different ways to coordinate via coordinated entry for specific lease ups, specific types of programming, different subsections of things, as small as like, do we look at certain types of units with certain eligibility requirements differently than we currently do? This, some of the recent move from some of our funders to require local preference for people to move in, I think has been a really positive, which I was surprised that I'm saying that, but watching it play out has been a really great thing. Can we take lessons learned from how that process has played out and pilot that places? Can we just like try to, some of these goals we've talked about earlier are,
Yep.
are super noble, but to make the whole system respond,
Huge.
it's going to be massive. So can we try things we think that will point us in that direction at a smaller scale, so that we don't feel it feels a little stuck. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Paralyzing. Like
yeah.
that daunting task of taking the whole thing is paralyzing. Where are the ways that we can zero in on particular things and adapt and move from there?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, thank you. Kelsey.
I would echo Noah's call to look at piloting, and I think identifying, um, what a housing type or a sub pop to do those a pilot with, like, and putting some thought and effort behind that. I think in tandem with that, continue with by name list development and getting those to be like real active going completed. Well, it's never gonna, that will be an ongoing thing. But by name list development, I think, is a big one to really understand in real time that focus, and doing those like a sub pop by name list development tied to a pilot of access and into resource type X. Um, oh, there's something else and just flew out of my brain.
No problem. We'll go to Martha, and then if it comes back to you, Kelsey, feel free to re-raise your hand. Martha.
Hi. Well, I think there have been positive moves in these directions. I think we still need to kind of have increased equity and efficiency. And getting to that point through some transparency and data sharing. And I know we've talked about this in this group before, but reference getting notification if referrals aren't accepted, kind of immediate access for reference on whether or not other referrals have been made for a particular participant, tracking and sharing more detailed information if referrals don't work out, so that we aren't duplicating efforts over and over again. And then real-time shelter availability and access would be very helpful.
Thank you. Eddie.
Besides echoing everything before, and also kind of like dovetailing off of what Noah said around really trying to drill into like some sub pop work. I was part of a work group that started just pre-COVID, that kind of did the work that led into what the housing needs form is now. And there was a lot of like goals around what that housing needs form was going to be used for, and what the purpose of that. Right now, we're asking for a whole bunch of data on that housing needs form that literally goes nowhere and does nothing. When we are already kind of starting to ask for that, where we can really drill in to do an appropriate service match. So kind of taking that and like really maybe trying to, maybe we don't have to start a whole new pilot, but like maybe reviving a pilot that we had traction on before, and seeing where we could go with that again, and to see if we have better placements, and tying that also again to regional or like community based like referrals. Because I mean, I have that experience too. Like when we opened up Shoreline, we had 20 people that we were able to pull from the Shoreline community up there. And that was really positive, for both the people that went there and the community that was around it as well. So there's kind of this double positive that can happen when we do those kind of more of a localized community-based referral as well, and we take that into mind.
I just want to say before, Kelsey, I see your hands up and I'll call on you in a second. A couple things. No, I saw you put in the chat that you got a roll at 11:30. No, that I don't think that will screw things up. Oh, and Noah's still here. Sorry, I couldn't see if he was still here, if he had already left. I think we'll be okay. Oh,
I
well,
I just wanted to make sure I didn't mess up any voting. I was looking at the agenda. It looks like we're okay.
yeah, and we have with you, there's still 8 people here, so we'll still be a fully staffed committee, even if you need to leave us. And no, nothing that we're voting on today, so no votes that will be mucked from that either. So, but thank you for checking in. I also see too, Kelsey put in here, enhancing the whole prioritization schema, which I know is something that all of you have said repeatedly in several meetings of this committee throughout the last year. So heard. uh, and then, yeah, Kelsey.
Um, I think something that we can also look at doing, and knowing that in a year, we can put a lot of ideas out, and a year goes really quickly.
Yeah.
So wanting to think thoughtfully about the um, how much we can do in one year.
Mm,
Uh, but I think something that just is my like, let's try this. Let's start using HMIS files. Let's connect people and have the how can we better use the tools we have for documentation sharing. Um, and I'm looking at you, Eddie. Uh, Maybe we can work on some centralized documentation and find like a program type to have all programs, all, X type of programs are using this set of documentation. So bringing all, parties, throw all those docs on the table. Let's go through all the fund sources, all the requirements, what is required, what is not actually required, and creating like that minimum standard of we all are using this so that is that going to help efficiency in getting folks housed? So why don't we look at, is there a particular housing type where length of time between referral and entry is really long? And let's tackle that. Let's try and decrease the length of time between referral and housing for X program. So I think we before we kind of decide of the kind of ideas that we are throwing out, let's anchor this in some of our data to see what might be some really effective things that we can try this year.
thank you, Kelsey. Eddie, you put your hand down, but was there one other thing you wanted to jump in there
Well,
with, or?
yeah, no, I was just gonna echo what Kelsey had said. I mean, our agency, we operate our own instance of Clarity, and we're moving to paperless. I mean, everything. So Clarity is a tool that can be used to house all of this, um, and also our agency over this past year, and I think this is probably why Kelsey was saying she was looking to me to this also, is we've done a lot of work around centralizing our whole process, and really taking deep dives into reading our funders' contracts, finding out what it is that was their requirement versus what a requirement that we put in as an agency. And if it was something that we put in as an agency and that didn't add additional risk, we stripped it out. We got rid of it.
Mm,
And so really going down to what does the funder need? Like, and really that is the burden right there, is what does the funder need? If it's not there, unless it poses a huge like agency risk for something, which we really haven't come across something that makes us put a requirement above what a funder is, but like throw it out. Like there's no need for it.
yep. Thank you. Okay, we've got some really good and big stuff here. Last call for any kind
Just
of.
calling out, Elliot put something
Oh,
in the chat.
yes, thank you, Eddie. I caught that
Oh,
one.
you
I
got
got
it.
it here. Yeah. No, appreciate the Hawkeye though. Eagle eye or whatever you want to say. Um, Elliot, go for it again. Take it away.
I started to type, but I'm too slow. I think in the as we're looking towards this goal of just universal treatment of eligibility touch points, et cetera, I think another huge perk that's in our favor will be as public funders adopt changes required by HOTMA. And just seeing how is that being. We already have WishVic who's level guidance. City of Seattle has said for now just follow WishVic, and we're coming up with our bit. As other public funders kind of weigh in and say this is how we interpret HOTMA, this is how we're doing HOTMA, it will lead us towards a more streamlined and lower barrier process for income in particular. Assets, when assets are relevant, but income in particular will be a lot easier.
Thank you, Elliot. Looking at awesome. Any other last goals here? All right. Let's talk about responsibilities. With this, I am kind of thinking about what does this group see as this group's responsibility in accomplishing? What does this group see as kind of how you all are working in tandem with the coordinated entry team? And also too, with this group, there's also members here from the COC board. So that's an important piece and element of how all of this works. And, something that our team talks a lot as we are kind of also creating and working on our own work plan for 2025. Let's not forget that this is the community's coordinated entry system, so what do we see as also, and all of you here too, whether you're COC board or if you're not COC board, stakeholders from our community of providers who are working within the coordinated entry system, in many ways, you are the coordinated entry system. So what do we see as the community's kind of responsibility? So does anyone have any thoughts or reflections on that? I have some, if that's okay. I think that I can share. So I think what I'd really like to see is kind of like this group really providing almost kind of like when I've been reflecting on this over the last few months, it's kind of like a policy agenda, kind of in how government sometimes work with providing kind of like a legislative agenda, like what is our policy agenda? What is it that this group is really taking the lead on saying, these are the things that these are the ways that we want this system to look like. This is how we, it could be functioning. These are our goals for how it can function. And then kind of dialoguing and right sizing that with the team here at KCRHA. We're the ones who are doing the operations. The specialist staff are front of the house, as we like to say, kind of engaging with the providers, with the people who are out there in the community doing the work. And then another thing that I'd like to say too is really looking at the community's participation. I think something for our team is that we get robust participation from the community as it pertains to folks reaching out to us for guidance, technical assistance, and we understand that that's our role too, to kind of put it out there to let folks know, here's how this system works, here's what your role in it is. But I also think there's a role to be played as well of particularly when it comes to those elements where we know that folks aren't super happy or jazzed about a certain thing. Well, hey, let's come to the table together, so that we can hear that feedback and meaningfully, work together. I also think it's our team's role to set that space and set the table. Eddie, something that you were saying before that I was thinking about when you were talking about previous work groups that existed before COVID. Um, I also, I don't know all of you from that time, but I myself was a provider and, a member of single adults case conferencing and would attend and listen in on like the single adults leadership team meetings. So I know and have historical awareness of conversations around all of these things that have happened in the past, long-standing conversations around this stuff, different iterations of things that we've tried in this system. Um, and then, but with the pandemic and with some transition from the county to KCRHA, of course, with folks like Alex, Olivia, Raphael, kind of no longer, Yalmina, no longer being here with us on our team. We have a great team, a very capable team, but just not all the same faces and all the same players of folks who have been there in the last several years, Eddie, to even be aware of, like something that I remember and I've returning to this role have had former colleagues of mine from DESC reach out to me to say, hey, remember when we did the medical acuity work group where we would look at the folks whose VI SPDATs were flagged as having a medical need and crosswalking that type of data with stakeholders from, Martha from your teams, maybe from Be Heard, from DESC medical teams, from Neighbor Care to say, okay, we know that HMIS is a system of data that's built mostly on self-report. Can we look at, the coordinated entry team doesn't have access to Epic records, for example, but can we look at to see like some of these VI SPDATs are flagged in that way? Who are the folks that's also we're able to validate that data with the other tools and resources that we have. Like those are things that we've done in the past that through time there hasn't been the same level of commitment or for whatever reason aren't still there. And I'm still kind of getting my grasp on what were all of those work groups that existed because I didn't know about all of them as a provider, and what are we looking at that we want to bring back. So Eddie, I just thought of something like that when you were mentioning that work group before. Um, so yeah, so I think responsibilities, looking at this this group's responsibility as kind of setting that policy agenda, my team's role and responsibility in kind of executing and articulating that agenda in partnership with the community. And all of the COC board and all of the providers and community that you all represent. I'm not going to write that all down because that was a lot, but it's on the record. So
It's all being recorded, so you're good. So
anyone else? Kelsey, I am actually going to call on you a little bit because I think in terms of when it comes to role and responsibility, um, you and our board and committee work group here at KCRHA have been so instrumental and supportive to me in understanding governance structure and how all of this works. But I also think too, maybe, and forgive me, other members here if this is something that's already common knowledge to you, but I think could be good to get on record here in the meeting of just officially talking about how what we do and what we work on in this space, how that folds into maybe cross-cutting work with the system performance committee, and then how we socialize or officially work with the COC board to accomplish our goals. Anything you can kind of share or add about that?
So one thing that I think will be really important and is kind of being worked on with our COC board, and why it's kind of pertinent that we have COC board representation upon all of our committees and work groups connected to our broader COC work, is having a unified work plan to identify what are our collective goals, looking not just at coordinated entry or not just at our system performance or HMIS, but looking really broadly over how our system is working and what are the things that we need to be collectively focused on, partially regarding HUD requirements that we have, one of which is evaluation of our coordinated entry system, thus this committee to be here. So I think it would behoove us to dig into the overarching COC work plan and see what are some of the above goals that are really in alignment with HUD requirements that we need to be meeting, as well as kind of those unique pieces that we were talking about of piloting, goals, vision. How are we creating alignment, and where is similar engagement happening within COC board work groups? So for example, there is a cross-cutting policy work group of the COC board that's looking at written standards. That might be a really great arm to pull in when we talk about documentation. So bringing in that group and having other participants of our coordinated entry committee be a part of that work group, so that we have these bodies kind of developing. Not all of them are stood up and in existence right now, but they are working to develop so that we have collective spaces to do some of this work, not just driven by, KCRHA staff, or not just driven by one organization or one individual, but a group of kind of people throughout different arms and different places and different perspectives of our, community to achieve these goals. Um, that that work plan is going to be finalized and developed by like the end of February, I want to say. So bringing that to this committee as well, that can perhaps be something that we all look at in February or in March, and add in kind of meat into the how we are going to accomplish some of these things. That's that's my spiel for y'all.
Yeah. Thank you, Kelsey. Anyone else?
I just say ditto.
Love it. Thank you, Jaja.
Yeah, also agree.
I'll second and third that. And also what you said too, Tom.
Great. Yeah, thanks everybody. Yeah, I think that also gave me pause and rise to say that there are some things for us to be looking forward to with our February meeting in terms of, so a little bit of forecasting here. We'll be talking about selecting a chairperson, co-chair, how we are going to kind of get this committee back to really being fully staffed with 12 or 13 members who are going to be here ready to work with us and walk with us month to month. Like Kelsey said, something that our board and committee work group has talked about recently is that, if the meetings are once a month, it's January 2025 and the years can feel long, but 12 meetings goes fast. It's actually not that many meetings that we have to work with to kind of accomplish and get into some of this work. And then also so kind of thinking about that and then right sizing or forecasting kind of some of these larger goals, like, are there ways that we can, do we start to think of as a committee, what's a 2-year plan or a 3-year, 1 year versus a up to 5-year plan kind of thing? Who knows? I don't want to wig anyone out, but just kind of taking that into consideration. And then the other piece that I think too is some of the work that, I again just can't say how grateful I am to all of you for being so patient with this work. I know that there was a lot of last year that, maybe meeting monthly, but not really truly kind of angling towards a true North Star and like organized work plan and strategy for this group. Um, the System Performance Committee and the COC board are kind of humming along and moving. And so there are things that our partners over at the System Performance Committee working for data and the HMIS system kind of are, kind of carrying forward with. And, next month, um, will be a good time to share some of those updates with you all about that. And I think just getting into step with what Kelsey's saying in terms of, yeah, looking at what is the COC board's work plan for the year. There could be things in there that are absolutely in line with the things that we are talking about today as a group, and there could be some things where, like Kelsey was saying, that are more kind of unique and particular to this work group, but still finding a way that those link back to in overall support of what the COC's kind of vision and plan is for the year. So, um, it is 11:47. We talked about working on this until about 11:55. We still have a couple more pieces here. And you know what? I think it will be good to talk about if anyone does have an idea or two, we can keep these sections more brief. But does anyone have any ideas of how we'd like to kind of measure or evaluate our results on some of these goals?
I mean, I think for me, it kind of digs into some of the vision and the kind of the goals that we talked about earlier. It's having access to the data. I mean, and having the data easily accessible, and easily digestible as well. I think those, so maybe that's the same metrics or dashboards that
Yep.
the yeah system performance committee has access to. Maybe that can at least be a good starting point for us, and we can look at that to see, is this meeting our needs, or do we want to request additional data? So maybe we have our own dashboards on there, and seeing what's going on. And because without the data, I mean, we can't evaluate anything. It would all be just qualitative, which is
Indeed.
important.
Yes.
Qualitative data is very important, but it's not going to tell us if the ship is sinking.
Yep. Yeah. And I think too, Eddie, I think you're absolutely right, and you hit it on the head. And one thing that I've been really trying to incorporate with the coordinated entry team and grounding some of our work for this year is, as we are partnering with the System Performance Committee and our colleagues and partners here internally in the Community Impact team to work towards more clarity on the data element of this too. Let's also look at the things that we do have, and I do think that the evaluation, the qualitative evaluation that was done when you and I were, and Kelsey and Martha and Anna were, and Elliot were providers, that DePaul, HUD, a qualitative evaluation. There's elements of that, as I've gone back and read that and looked at it very closely, there's elements of that because of some of the shifts that have happened more recently with coordinated entry aren't quite as particularly germane anymore. But those are only a couple of things. And really, by and large, a lot of the feedback and recommendations that they have are in line with a lot of what you all are saying today. And in my opinion, are still, relevant, and really important for us to listen to and move forward with today as well. So I think that incorporating that, also from like a mixed methods lens, we have the qualitative piece. My team's hearing from folks every day about like all kinds of things, and also let's get that quantitative piece in there too, and really be able to get that specificity. Devin.
Thanks. I'll really just echo, yeah, I think having access to that data dashboards, and having consistent data points that we're looking at over time is going to be really helpful. And then I think getting some more definition of the problems we've identified here, and being able to really think about like understand like what the problem is and what that means like at a tangible level, and then how we want to change that and like what we will expect to see. So just setting out some of those like kind of, I don't know, I think of like SMART goals, the measurable, attainable goals, so that we have something to reference like as we're looking at data over time. And I think it's challenging with that. I'll say too, like it's challenging in terms of like thinking of some of these problems. It can be hard to like really define those in a way that captures like the variety of experiences and the like individual experiences that make those up. And so just being thoughtful about that. So yeah, I think that's one addition I'd like to put in
Thank
here.
you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Devin. Alrighty. In terms of a project roadmap, I think that I will just share, and in the interest of, in the interest of what we were saying before, we got really, and also if you kind of think about it, it's like, all right, this is our first meeting of the year, 11 more after this. Unless we're super intentional about planning our calendar, we might have one get dropped just later in the year, just considering kind of like holiday scheduling and all that kind of stuff. So if we're really thinking about kind of like 10 or 11 meetings for the rest of the year, in the interest of time, and kind of in the spirit of what Devin was just saying regarding like SMART goals for a roadmap, I think that what I'm going to do is I've taken notes, as you all can see, on all of the data. We've got some like really rich stuff here. I think what I would like to do is take this, distill it down, share it with all of you, and from there we can kind of start to really identify maybe 3 to 5 areas that we want to focus on and sink into this year. I would like to have those by February. So I'll report back to you all with a distillation and a summary of this by that week of the 13th. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and look at a calendar now. So our next meeting is scheduled for the 27th. And so, yes, that's correct. And so the week of the 11th, the week of the 10th, February 10th, that would be my aim for kind of getting something out to you all for you to review and give me feedback on in terms of, also I'm seeing that there's stuff happening in the chat, so let me track that too. Elliot's got a roll. Thanks, Elliot. Getting feedback on that. If you could all just let me know that it's making sure that I think we have it pretty clearly. It sounded like we had group consensus on vision, values, goals. So if you all will entrust me to kind of distill that, summarize it, I'll pass it on to you that week of the 10th. You can let me know, give me some feedback. Is this reflecting accurately what we've all been talking about here today? And I think really at our next meeting on the 27th, we'll have some updates. We'll have some parliamentary business to attend to in terms of chairperson and membership. And then also really it would be nice to kind of start getting this into like a work plan with a timeline. I also think too, another thing that comes to mind is as my team has our work plan, something that could make sense either for next month's meeting or maybe the month after, bringing them back to the space to kind of talk again about how we are going to kind of support you all in executing this plan and making sure that it's kind of right-sized with what our goals are for the year too. And pretty like things are pretty much in line between our team and what you all are talking about in terms of goals for the year too. So just kind of like getting into we can report up to you all what some of the nuts and bolts are going to be with how we want to execute this vision and goals that you all are kind of setting forth for us. How does that sound to everyone? Sweet. Seeing some nods, some thumbs up. Love it. Thank you. Alrighty. Well, actually in that little spiel I've just given, I think that is kind of some next steps we have here. Like we said, and just now here too, for the record, I am going to keep with 2 hour time windows for right now. I understand it's a big chunk of everyone's days. And I know, some folks that come a little bit late, leave a little bit early. But for me, that does feel kind of like the most comfortable, and is giving me the most kind of like trust that we are actually able to get through the tall, list of things that we have that we want to kind of move forward here. I understand that we've been spending, again, I just can't thank you enough for your patience with a lot of time that's gone into kind of like setting the context and the groundwork. But I really do believe that the seeds we've planted the end of last year and now here today, I really want to kind of move forward with a sense of urgency on kind of executing some of these goals. And I am asking for that 2 hour time window because I do think that that gives us the best opportunity and the most time to kind of really move toward that success. Is that okay with everyone too? All right, great. All righty. Then that's all that we have for today. Does anyone have any last comments, questions for the good of the order before we adjourn?
I just like to say thank you so much, Tom. You're
Yeah,
fabulous.
definitely.
You know what I'm saying? And thank the team, thank the committee, for your guys' input. And I'm glad that everyone did have input. So I think that's really going to make for some good outcomes, as we suss all this out.
Thank you, Jaja. Yeah, we appreciate it. The team, uh, I can also share back, just all of their appreciation for you all, your commitment, and just really moving forward for this. They're anxious too. Everything that you all are talking about that you want, I can tell you, I do feel very confident speaking for them that, it's shared. The emphasis, the urgency, the desire, it's very much shared, the values, everything, the goals. So really looking forward to moving forward as one. So thanks everybody. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone. Bye.
Tom. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good weekend.